The VU story begins within.
Your passion.
Your dreams.
Your reality.
Write your Vincennes University story today.
Higher learning, lower cost. Indiana's first college, Vincennes University.
Indiana's first college, making a major impact on the economy, training the next generation of pilots in aviation, educating and skilling up future workers in advanced manufacturing and the skilled trades, partnering with global giants like Toyota, Cummins, and John Deere to help create the workforce of the future.
The only real competition in this world is the competition to be more tomorrow than you are today.
That's Vincennes University President Chuck Johnson, the leader behind motivating students to dive into the new economy. He's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Well, you wouldn't necessarily associate Indiana music legend John Mellencamp with Vincennes University President Chuck Johnson. But we're going to do that here on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. I'm Gary Dick. Mellencamp from small town Seymour in southern Indiana. Chuck Johnson from small town Washington in southwest Indiana. The common bond, Vincennes University. Mellencamp went there in the early 70s. Chuck Johnson is president of the school, a university he's very familiar with. Chuck's hometown of Washington, just 20 miles to the east of VU, Indiana's first college. And I'm really pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by the 22nd president at Vincennes University, Indiana's oldest university, Chuck Johnson. Chuck, how are you?
I'm great, Gary. Good to see you this morning.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see a fellow Sycamore. You got your undergraduate degree at ISU. When were you at Indiana State?
I graduated in '84. I spent 5 years there. I came in right on the tail end, right after Larry Bird had graduated, and missed that, but got there right after that.
And you missed me too, just a bit, because I was there when he was there. And what a time to be at Indiana State. That was a lot of fun.
It was a great period.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about Vincennes. As I said, Indiana's oldest university, been around for a long, long time. And I would argue, I mean, the impact that Vincennes is having, and I think can have going forward, can be overstated on the economy. You're doing a lot of things that I think a lot of people may not know about. Chuck, first of all, give me a thumbnail description. How would you describe Vincennes University?
Well, I think we are a unique institution in higher education because we are largely still an associate degree granting or junior college institution, and still have that as our primary mission. We have a handful of bachelor's degrees in some key areas like technology, homeland security, nursing, healthcare, and education. And then we also do a lot of outreach and training with business and industry throughout Indiana. We also have a great relationship with the military. We're on several military sites around North America, from coast to coast. We do a lot of dual credit programming with high schools, early college programming, career and technical education, early colleges. And we have a pretty robust online program as well. We have a great aviation technology center in Indianapolis. We do American Sign Language at the Indiana School for the Deaf with our partners there. And we have main campuses in Vincennes, but we also have a nice campus in Jasper, Indiana, and training sites in Lebanon and in Gibson County that we call home, as well as Plainfield. So we're kind of all over the place. We have great partnerships with the Association of Builders and Contractors, the ABC throughout Indiana, and on several of their sites, helping to deliver education to wrap around their apprenticeship programs. And so it's really a nice mix of mission, and we get really, I think, a chance to work closely with individuals in a lot of communities.
It's fascinating to me, the reach of Vincennes. That again, I mean, I didn't know. I mean, as I've talked to you over the years, have learned more about it. But amazing, first of all, not only the national presence, but just statewide. You have programs all over the state. Talk about that statewide connection, how it came about, and why it's happening, why you're doing it.
Well, as you know, for many, many years, VU was the primary junior college in the state of Indiana. And so we've almost always had a statewide mission. It has evolved over time. And as other institutions have come on and their missions have also been adjusted, we've really looked at how do we contribute to the state either in a community or statewide by bringing students to our campus in Vincennes. We have, I think, almost all 92 counties represented in our student population in Vincennes, and it is part of our history and our mission. We do a lot, as I said, with high schools. In fact, we're with about 130 high schools. We've been doing what we call dual credit programming in high schools for almost 50 years, and that's been a core part of our mission for a long time. We've evolved that to really move toward getting students toward credentials in high school, whether those are industry credentials or even sometimes associate degrees. And one of our longest standing partnerships there is with Ben Davis University and on the west side in Indianapolis. And they that high school is an all VU program and one we're very, very proud of.
I would argue, or I think you could make the case that VU's relevance today is perhaps greater than ever before because of the needs of the workforce and the needs of the business community are different and changing all the time. Agree with that, Chuck? I'm sure you probably would.
No, I think VU is really in a strong position, not only to prosper as an institution, but to be a major contributor to the continued success and growth in Indiana, because we're so connected to manufacturing sector, so connected to the logistics sector, the aviation sector. We do a lot of work in the diesel technology sector with Cummins and John Deere. So I think we're really doing a lot of the things, and we're focusing on the segment of the workforce that is so critical, that skilled laborer, that person who has the ability to make things work and keep them working, the technician who's able to solve problems and help an organization succeed and thrive through automation and through other technologies.
A good example, I think, would be your presence there at Toyota, not in Princeton, not far from where you are right now. Give people an idea of that relationship, and certainly that campus there continues to flourish on tail end, I think, now of an $800+ million investment, more than 1,000 new jobs added there. Just an amazing complex there. Talk about the VU presence and how that model works.
Well, we've been blessed to partner with Toyota pretty much since their inception as part of their workforce development and a lot to help get things going there. And that's continued to grow. And again, particularly focusing on that skilled automation maintenance worker or mechatronics or robotics person. Those programs have grown. And so now we have our AMT program, which is a 2-year apprenticeship program with an associate degree attached. We've been doing for 10 years now with Toyota. We were the third school in the country that Toyota reached out to establish this, and we're very, very excited about that program continuing to be very strong as it includes other employer partners in Southwest Indiana and even Southeastern Illinois. That program spawned a continuation of training that we do for incumbent workers or current employees who want to be skilled up to take on those roles, and we offer a number of training courses both at our Gibson County site and also on our Vincennes campus to support Toyota's needs there. And then more recently, we rolled out a 1-year version of that apprenticeship model, that AMT program that we launched with Toyota. So we kind of have a nice full universe, if you will, of different training and programming opportunities, all focused on helping that organization have the talent they need to help sustain their automation, their mechatronics, their robotics in the advanced manufacturing sector.
Without the kind of training programs you're talking about, is it safe to say that some of these companies, and now we're getting more and more of this investment in the electrification of the auto industry and certainly microelectronics and all those types of industries. But is it safe to say that kind of training is absolutely key? Without it, a lot of these companies probably would not choose Indiana.
I think it's an important part of the piece that we offer as a state is the capability. And as you mentioned, these other trends and changes that are happening in these industries. The things that we do are very translatable to electric vehicle assembly and development. They're very much in line with what you need to do in the semiconductor industry. A lot of that is automated. A lot of that is setting up systems that have to be managed and controlled and adjusted. And so we think we're very, very well positioned to pivot whenever a new industry comes into our area. And a recent example of that is the announcement in Knox County of the Agro-Renew investment, and they're going to count on VU to help them develop their skilled workforce, and that's a completely different industry. But the skill set for automation, the skill set for problem solving, the technical needs are all there. And as technology changes, we can skill up and keep workers up to date on the latest changes.
Talk about Agri-Renew, because I think that's an amazing story and a good example. $83 million investment, startup company there in Vincennes. A good example of that connection between Vincennes University, the city of Vincennes, Knox County, that region, the Pantheon, I know, which is a co-working incubator type space. All of those elements in place made that happen.
It really is. It's a great recipe for that kind of growth and investment to occur, where you've got people in the community at all levels of government and economic development, leaders who are investing in the community to make sure that we are not staying the course, where we're continuing to improve and grow. The Pantheon is a tremendous asset in that it is helping us to think about how do we bring in new ideas, new technologies, new talent, and incubate, grow those. And the university is a resource for getting that workforce in place, as well as helping perhaps in some cases to test some of those ideas.
Talk about the model for that startup, because I think it's a great example of innovation, how ideas percolate in a region, and this is specific to Southwest Indiana and what happens there. Talk about the model for this company.
So this model is going to be a bioplastics model, and its primary source for the bioplastic material is going to be the residual melon production that's going on in the area. And Knox County is one of the top 4 or 5 melon producing regions in this entire United States. And so there is significant amount left over each year. And so you can take those melon husks and turn those into plastics that then can be turned into pellets that are sold to, plastics manufacturers in a variety of ways that create a bioplastic that is also biodegradable. So It's a wonderful green operation. It's taking advantage of a natural resource that is already there in the community, that is part of the community's history and economic development, the great ag sector, and building on that really to, I think, produce something really exciting.
You said one of the best. I think it is the best region for melons around. I sampled those growing up not too far up the Wabash River from you there, Chuck. Is the Big Peach, is that still there?
It is still there. Yes. Yes.
That's a landmark on 41 there.
It's a must-stop place.
Yeah. Chuck, in terms of the culture in Indiana, there's been a big push, or is a big push, to get more Hoosiers with post-secondary credentials and certifications, quality education beyond high school. And I think there's progress in that regard. But in terms of the culture of Indiana, that has I think tended to always be skewed toward 4-year institutions, and we've got great colleges, 4-year colleges and universities, the public and the private level both. Do you sense that's changing now, to understand that the things that a Vincennes University is offering is creating really good careers for people?
I think there's a lot more awareness that a bachelor's degree is not required for everyone to be successful. I think obviously in the education world, I think bachelor's degrees have a great value. And I think that we see a lot of benefit in people's lives who go on and get that education. But I think what I'm seeing more of now, Gary, is actually maybe some starting to recognize that it doesn't have to be a direct path through a 4-year degree from high school. That in VU is a great example of this. We can stack different levels of learning and credentials for folks that want to start out and maybe go to work within a year or so of graduating high school, who might want to get an associate degree and go into work. And then that doesn't preclude them from getting that bachelor's degree if down the road they're able to see that as being a viable path for them. And in fact, it used to be not too uncommon for people to work themselves through school and maybe be 30 years old when they get that bachelor's degree, which is a lot younger to me today than it used to seem. But I'd say there's no harm in that. In fact, that should be celebrated and should be a model that we encourage. Many employers will support people to get that advanced education as they're moving through the ranks, as they're maybe ready to take on higher level responsibilities. And schools like VU and many others can help them, provide them those credentials along the way. So to me, it's not about necessarily an endpoint has to be a bachelor's degree or not. And it's not about college or no college. It's about having that accessible in the moment when you need the education, when you need to skill up, when you need to be able to have the skills necessary to keep your career relevant, there are places that you can plug into, whether it's VU or Ivy Tech or ISU or wherever, that we're here. And I think that's a model that we're all trying to figure out how do we stay relevant with. And I do think that VU is well positioned, partly because of our great employer partnerships and partly because of our broad mission.
VU has had a long history in industries like aviation. And aviation technology and maintenance, those types of things. That continues to be the case. And as that industry is transforming with lots of workforce challenges, I know you've got a big center here is it in Indianapolis and Plainfield as well?
The Aviation Technology Center is on the airport grounds in Indianapolis, right next to Rolls-Royce there off of Washington. Yeah. So that's where we do almost all of our maintenance programming. Our flight program is based there, but we do fly out of Eagle Creek Airport. Out of Plainfield, we support the logistics sector primarily with Toyota Material Handling and Amazon as big partners there. But the aviation sector has it's so important to so many different pieces, right? You think about our logistics sector being important, especially in central Indiana. Well, a lot of that is because of the airport, is because of FedEx, is because of all of the things that we can be, not just because of a great location or great highway network, but because we have a great aviation sector as well. And so VU is so pleased to be part of that solution, because it does make a huge difference particularly for central Indiana.
Much more with Vincennes University President Chuck Johnson. When we return, we'll talk about VU's role in the community and in Southwest Indiana, also Chuck's path to higher education in Vincennes, and a lot more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week, Chuck Johnson, the 22nd president at Vincennes University, a university that I think by any measure continues to be on the move. Chuck, talk about VU's role in community. I think it's interesting to look at efforts being made. I know I've talked to some folks in Knox County and folks saying, what do we need to, strive for more, to become better, to leverage what we have here. And I think there are some efforts underway to make that happen in Knox County and Southwest Indiana. Talk about VU's role in connecting the community there in Southwest Indiana.
Well, it all stems primarily from the fact that this is our home too, right? We want to make sure that our home is a place that we are contributing to, that we're a part of the future for, and so VU has invested significantly in local parks. We helped with the city to really refresh a riverside park called Kimmel Park about 7 or 8 years ago. That has been a great addition for the community. We've worked with the city on the levee project. We've worked with some downtown beautification efforts. We see ourselves as an important member of the community because the community is so important to us. It's our lifeblood as well. And then you look at us like in Jasper, we're very much embedded there as well. We work very closely with industry partners, with the schools. The Jasper campus is a part of the cultural and the workforce development economic hub of that community as well.
Hey, talk about that, because I think that's another great example of that connection between, the business community, academic community here in the state of Indiana, what Jasper did to get that VU campus there. And I think it was really the result of the business community coming together, say, hey, we need this in our community. Talk about how that came about.
Oh, well, that's a great story, and it is exactly that. The Jasper leadership, the community leaders, had said they needed higher education in that community to support both what happened locally with industry, but also support the population growth as well. And so this started, I think, with a group that was called Cohere, the Council on Higher Education, something or other. But they started, and VU actually launched its Jasper campus in 1971.
Wow.
This was started downtown, and we moved out to our campus a few years later, and we have a beautiful campus on the edge of Jasper, really helping to serve all of Du Bois County and even southwest central Indiana. And it's become a great resource. We work closely with the schools, and Patoka Valley Career Cooperative provide dual credit career pathways in construction and IT and in advanced manufacturing, robotics. We then also have an apprenticeship type program similar to what we have with Toyota, with about a dozen or so companies there in Du Bois County and surrounding area, where students are getting into these skilled trade type of roles. We work closely with the hospital and with the healthcare area on both high school and nursing programs. And so it is a great collaboration. Of course, Jasper has a tremendous history, both with its industrial base and its diverse development there, and the fact that people want to do things and they get things done.
How about career pathways? Getting kids at a younger age on pathways to careers. Apprenticeships, big in Europe, that being talked about a lot here. Are those apprenticeships, career pathways? Is that kind of the where things are going here in Indiana? I know there's a lot of talk about that from a workforce standpoint.
I think we'll see more and more of that, again, partly looking at the ROI of higher education. How do we help people find the pathway? And we talk about the stackability. Gary, we have, I want to say, just north of 1,600 students who are in some apprenticeship or work-based learning program here across the different partnerships that we have. And that's been a part of our growth, is seeing how we can continue to tie that world of work with the education that is needed to help them have the skills. It's a tremendous model. It's a great way to help pay for education, reduce the debt, reduce the cost, and make it immediately applicable to the things that people are doing.
Back to that connection to community, another development there in Vincennes in Southwest Indiana. I mentioned it earlier, the Pantheon, which is in a historic theater, right, in downtown Vincennes, that I think hosted some big names way back in the day. That's been created or transitioned, turned into something that is really cool. Co-working space, incubator, percolating some ideas, entrepreneurial ideas. Talk about the Pantheon, what it means for that community, and the fact that it came together. Vincennes is not a large community. Community that size to do something like that, I think, is noteworthy.
No, it's a perfect example, again, of how leadership with vision and understanding kind of what the future needed to look like. Certainly, we were blessed to have this historic theater in the middle of downtown on Main Street that did have some big names back in the vaudeville days,
right.
And tremendous historical significance. And it created the perfect environment for this co-working and incubation space. It has, it's an asset for the community, both in terms of physical asset, because it's a beautiful space, but also because of the kinds of ideas and the connections it's making. One of them being the result of this Agro-Renew investment that's coming out. That's going to be a big investment and big opportunity for Knox County and the surrounding area.
Speaking of entertainers, Vincennes, home to one of our country's great entertainers over time, Red Skelton, and you've got a museum there that is. I have to admit, I have not been there, but I know I've seen video and pictures. I know there was a big renovation and expansion, I think, recently there. Talk about that museum and how that connects to quality of life in the region.
So yes, so Red Skelton and Vincennes are pretty much synonymous. Red throughout his career, no matter how successful he had a top 10, 20 television show for decades. And he always stayed close to Vincennes. He always maintained ties and knew, that his roots were important to him. And so when he passed, his widow, Lothian Skelton, worked with some community leaders to establish a museum in his honor. We built a performing arts center as well, named after Red Skelton, and a beautiful theater that we have there. And that museum is a tremendous repository of both Red's work and a history of time in terms of the entertainment industry in this country. where I think it really takes you back to see some things that, for me growing up anyway, are really great, not just as reminiscence, but even as a history idea. And then Red was an artist and a prolific painter, and Lothian recently she donated $4 million to the university to expand the museum and allow us to be able to display more of his artwork in a gallery and more of a meeting space. So it is a great opportunity for us as a community to have something that not many communities have. And certainly it's to the great dedication and commitment that Red and now Lothian and Skelton have had to Vincennes.
Another opportunity for Vincennes, Southwest Indiana in general, coming up next April, which the more I learn about this, I find it interesting, and that's the solar eclipse in April. And I think Vincennes is probably in a really good spot for that. What are there activities planned? I mean, the state communities and the state are looking at this as a big tourism opportunity.
Yes, there's a citywide, countywide committee. University has a committee. We're planning on a lot of events and supporting the county's events across the river in Lawrenceville. They're planning some big things at the airport there. And with all of our sites, the memorial, the Grousing grounds, the university grounds, we have prime viewing locations in the community. I think there's anticipation of upward to 100,000 visitors to come into Knox County over that period of time. Vincennes and Knox County are I believe expected to have the longest period of total eclipse for this in Indiana. It's just over 4 minutes, I believe, which I think is very appealing to those who are eclipse watchers. And so we're all excited about it. April 8th, 2024 is going to be a big, big date for all of us.
Well, lots going on certainly in Southwest Indiana. And as I think about all that you're doing at Vincennes University and in the community, it's probably a piece of that is probably kind of a labor of love, so to speak, because you grew up in that area, right? You're from Washington.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's always a university that was in my mind. Several friends, family members, my wife, my father, all went to Vincennes University. I spent much time on that campus as a young person and was very familiar with it. And I'll have to be honest with you, Gary, it always felt like this small little cozy university that I always kind of knew was next door.
Right.
But as I've gotten to Vincennes, I've been there around 11 years, I learned new things about VU, our history, the mission, the things that we do, and how much this institution has been at the core of a lot of things that have happened throughout the history of Indiana.
Growing up in Washington, and I think I grew up in Clinton, Indiana, a long time ago. Great community to grow up in, to be sure. Things are different today in communities everywhere, but especially in small town Indiana. As you look at growing up in Washington and what Washington and that area is today, let's talk about that, the differences and where you see opportunities for that region to grow going forward.
Well, I think certainly in Washington, I-69 has opened up new opportunities there, and we've seen some investment. And I think the community is again doing a lot there to take advantage of the ability to have I-69 and building out new models for investments there. Some new businesses that have sprung up, and of course we're in the backyard of Crane and Westgate and that area, and that's critical employer for the region, very important to the future. And a lot of the work going on in semiconductors and the space that's happening there to support the defense industry is really exciting and an opportunity, I think, to continue to make that region vital. But it has changed. I mean, the industry sector growing up was different. I mean, in the 70s and 80s, those communities like Washington, Vincennes, lost some of their major employers, manufacturing employers who pulled out. But it's good to see some of these new opportunities that are backfilling and coming in with new technologies, new business models, and investments that I think are going to be a new renaissance for Southwest Indiana and communities like Washington and Vincennes.
As you look going forward at opportunities, and you mentioned Crane, which is not that far away, and what an innovation hub that is on so many levels. But with Crane and some of the other assets we've talked about here during the podcast, it would seem Southwest Indiana can be poised or is poised for some greatness. What is it going to take to realize that?
I think it's going to take continued cooperation across political boundaries, across different industry sectors coming together, It's going to take city leaders and county leaders and state leaders, as well as industry. It's going to take education providers, whether it's IU, Purdue, VU, or others, to help come together and bring resources and bring a web of solutions to things. And I think it's going to require us probably to make some important investments, critical investments, and to keep thinking about these as investments rather than expenditures, because I think we have to make sure that we are setting up for the future and not just celebrating from the past.
Chuck Johnson, the 22nd president at Vincennes University. Chuck, it's been a real treat to catch up with you. Doing a lot of great things. The Vincennes impact extends far beyond Knox County, to be sure. And I look forward to covering what's next for VU going forward.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this edition of the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. It's a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download it at Apple or wherever you find your podcast. And get Indiana business news 24/7. Be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.